Welcome back to our Steven. I'm your host, Steven. The T stands for traumatizing, and today's traumatizing stories include hickeys, monster-in-laws, and driving a car with someone on top of it, starting it all off with a story titled The Audacity. Buckle up, this is a long one. I, 37-year-old female, walked into the sauna at my gym in the women's locker room. A few other ladies were in there. No biggie, normal day. I decided to forego my headphones and go no technology and meditate for a few minutes. 5 minutes in, an elderly lady walks in. She's very petite and fit, tanned, long blonde hair, and maybe in her 70s. She looks directly at me and starts a conversation. "It's such a beautiful day. This city is where to be." I reply, "Yes, we're so lucky it's such a nice day." The lady replies, I used to live by the beach and it got weird. And now if I go to OB, I only go to Peoples and park there." I respond to her, "Oh yes, I love Peoples and OB. I live in South Dakota, if you know, you know." The lady replies, "Oh, well then have you ever eaten at Nico's? I love that place." I tell her, "No, actually I got sick from there a long time ago and never went back." The lady replies, "Oh really? Well, I don't go to the place on the corner at the end of the street because I got sick there." I respond, "That's unfortunate because I love their fish tacos." The lady replies, "Oh, I don't eat fish, it's bad for you. I did a parasite cleanse and ever since then, I can't handle any kind of fish because of the parasites. I only eat red meat." I tell her, "Okay, that works for you, that's great. I just can't do that." The lady responds, "Why? I only eat a small portion, it's better than fish. Fish has mercury, and you should try checking your hormones. Have you done that?" I go to doctors for that and they gave me a bioidentical hormones. Have you heard of that? I tell the lady, "Yes, I have. I don't have any issues, I just don't eat red meat or dairy due to high cholesterol. My father passed away from heart disease and I'm doing what's best for me in my diet." The lady then says, "Well, you must be doing something wrong if you still have all this weight on you." Then points to my midsection and grabs her own stomach to show me what she means. I say, "Excuse me, but just because you have something that works for you doesn't mean you know better for everyone else. You came into the sauna, started a conversation with me, you don't know me or anything about me, and you proceed to insult my weight and act like you know everything about health and what's best for others." The lady responds, "You're being too sensitive. If I was giving helpful information to someone, I would listen." I respond, "I don't give a freak if you think I'm being sensitive. I have a medically trained background and currently work in the health and wellness industry. You don't know what's better for someone or not. You're attacking my weight and now my knowledge that I specifically went to college for." The lady says, "Well, I went to college to study that too." And I ask her, "And how long ago was that?" The lady scoffs and tries to say something else about how she looks things up online. I say, "Look, lady, I came in here minding my own business. You came in here, started a conversation with me not knowing me or anything about me. You proceed to insult my weight, knowledge, and process. You wouldn't know that I lost 20 pounds last year just by cutting out red meat and dairy." The lady responds, "Oh, really, you did?" I tell her, "Yes, really, and you wouldn't know that because you don't know me. You need to stop talking and stop insulting me before I be a Karen and go to the front desk and report you for insulting my weight and harassing me in the sauna." The lady then tries to say something else. I looked right at her, held up my hand, and said, "Stop," really loud. She sat there brooding for a few minutes. I continued to breathe, looked like I was meditating, and she left. I sighed in relief and said, "Thank God she left." Literally every single woman in the sauna was comforting me and saying how that lady always says out-of-pocket things to others. They say that she's always talking about her bioidentical hormones and telling everyone that they should do a parasite cleanse. I was shaking, crying from anger, but left the sauna on a positive note because all the other women in there were being supportive. I did go up to the front to make a report about the lady just in case she tries to talk to me or insult me again, and everyone was so nice and supportive and seemed offended by her behavior towards me. It was very validating. Anyway, I'm still upset about it, but I felt like I did a good job at sticking up for myself. I'm just so ticked at the audacity of some people. I'm never ditching my headphones again. So I just have kind of two things to say here. The first is, I think OP kind of highlighted the real problem here, which was they ditched their headphones. I've heard some people describe how they wear headphones and they're not even listening to anything just because it causes people to bother them less. Almost kind of akin to like wearing sunglasses so people can't see where your eyes are looking or whatever. The second thing is, as somebody that's not very socially outgoing, I'm imagining myself in a situation like that and it hurts. It is a cringe situation. Just let me be in the sauna. In fact, if I'm in a sauna, a communal sauna, I don't really want to be talking to other people. I'm just there to relax. And a great way to relax would be to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below, and then you can relax and enjoy some more crazy Reddit stories with me. Our next story is Traumatized My Uncle with a Look. My uncle was not a good person. He believed boys needed to be toughened up in order to become men. He was big into play punching. He bullied every kid he ever met, including his own sweet, mild-tempered grandsons. Suffice to say, I've never heard anyone say that they've missed him since he passed on. I was maybe 24 when this happened, somewhere in that range. I usually tried to avoid him because he was unpleasant to be around. We had recently moved our annual family Christmas to a restaurant. This ended up being a great idea because people behave themselves more. Anyways, I ended up having to sit next to him. Now, it's important to note two things. One, I have always been quiet and try to stay out of most of my family's way. They are loud, opinionated, and fairly toxic. I don't like to argue and hate raised voices, so I don't join the fray often, if at all. Two, I have been a pacifist since I was about 16. I don't make it my whole personality. In fact, most people who know me probably aren't aware of it. I don't hide it, but I don't advertise it. It's my thing and my personal standard for my behavior. So I'm sat next to my mean uncle at a restaurant with the rest of my family. To say we have nothing in common is being polite. He decides that the best way to interact with his 24-ish-year-old niece is to punch me in the arm. I was so taken aback that he did that. I ended up traumatizing him so badly that he never touched me again. You may be thinking I raised my voice or publicly shamed him. I did not. All I did was to look down at his fist against my arm, glanced back at him, looked at his fist again, then turned my head and continued my conversation to the family member next to me. The only person I think who even saw it was my mother, and she said nothing at the time. The rest of the table were oblivious. He hardly said a word to anyone the rest of the night. She loved that I put him in his place without a single word. He never tried to bully me again for the rest of his life. In fact, he stayed away from me as much as he could. I guess if he couldn't punch in the arm, he didn't know how to interact with me. You know, OP's story and specifically their uncle kind of reminded me of a person that I loosely knew. I have a very dear friend of mine, and growing up, I remember going over to his place for events like their birthday or whatever, and they would have a decently older cousin there, maybe 5 or 6 years older. He's tall, he's big, and he was a bit of a bully. Like, he had a thing where he would go around, and thankfully he didn't mess with me too much for some reason. I think for whatever reason he liked me because I didn't make much of a commotion or something. But he would be that kind of person that would go around and cup check people. You know, when the guys aren't expecting it, they give a little tap to the nuts. Like, that was the kind of aura and the environment that kind of radiated around him. At least that's how it felt like to me. How many people out there really like that friend who, first thing in the morning when they see you, give you a nice healthy deck right to the upper arm? Oh, I really want to spend more time around this person. Top Value left a comment on the post saying, "It sounds like ol' uncle wasn't socialized very well when he was a child or something. Jeesh." OP responded saying, "He grew up to be much like my grandfather. They were both bullies and terrible people. Generational abuse was definitely a thing in our family. Thankfully, my mother and I have distanced ourselves almost completely. We're either no contact or little contact with most." Our next story is, "Threatened to hit me? Joke's on you. I'm into that." This story takes place a few years ago when I was in my first year of gymnasiet. I'm Swedish. For some context, I, 16-year-old non-binary at the time, am autistic and alternative. So I've always been a prime target for bullying. I also have no social shame. I also had bright green hair, which is relevant later on. On the first day of school, I was placed in a group with a kid, 16-year-old male, who clearly was trying to bully me. I simply chose to stay friendly since it was fairly tame. After that, it escalated. He would try to tease and bug me like he was 8 years old, but I never reacted much as I was focused on making friends. At some point in English class, he told the teacher he needed to go to a meeting. When she pressed him, he just taunted her, so I asked if she could just let him go. For reasons I still can't figure out, that really set him off and he went off on me, calling me stupid and a whole heap of slurs. I was just staring at him in disbelief. He then said, "At least I have my natural hair color," and I just burst out laughing. That made him hate me. So on to the main course. Towards the end of the semester, we were taking a biology test. I was sitting next to him and he was talking to his friends while the teacher was trying to explain the test. After she asked him to be quiet multiple times, I turned to him and said, "Can you just shut up? Insert name here?" He did not take that and started yelling at me, saying he was going to punch me and hit me and beat me up. I let him keep going, digging his own social grave. I kept calm and looked him in the eyes through his entire tirade. Once he was done, I looked at him and with a completely straight face, without breaking eye contact, I go, "Kinky." That one word completely caught him off guard and he started sputtering, turned to his friends, and started trying to save it. He never bothered me again, and since even his friends thought he went too far, he was socially exiled. He ended up having to repeat the year for other reasons, but I always made sure he never messed with the first years. I was basically their parent. So yeah, overall, pretty happy ending for me. I hope I did this right and that this is the right place. Let me say, I love this kind of revenge, but does it not depend solely on what type of bully it is? Because some bullies, they're not afraid to actually act on what they're threatening. Somebody like this, OP just kind of looks at them, gray rocks them, essentially, and they're not stupid enough to actually try to act on any of that stuff, so it just fizzles out. There's no power to be held over that person. Lumpy Marsupial left a comment saying, "I'm going to hurt you." Promises, promises. Hey, what now? But. Also, sticks and stones may break my bones, but whips and chains excite me. Our next story is, maybe keep your opinions to yourself sometimes. So my workplace hired a new guy a few weeks ago. Decent worker, but he's very vocal on everything. Like every thought is vocalized, or that he loves his own voice. This guy is in his late 40s and has grown kids, which we all know. Anyway, it's well known around my workplace that my mother has dementia and doesn't really remember her kids or my dad. I didn't really want my work to know, but I ended up crying at work and it came out. For the most part, I've made my peace with it, but every now and then I really miss being able to talk to her and her voice. So to help, I reread a book she got me when I was a kid. I've been missing her a lot lately, so I was once again rereading my book and I took it to work to read on my break. I left it next to my bag for 2 seconds, and when I came back, the new guy was commenting on it. "Oh my god, who brought a kid's book to work? I wouldn't even read this rubbish to my kids because they have better taste. Like, this is just embarrassing, really." All this as loud as he could say it. When he spotted me, I burst into tears. I was mad, not sad, but I can cry on cue, and I mean cried. I had snot running down my face was red and my eyes bloodshot. I choked out, "I miss my mom," and 2 other coworkers ran to hug me while telling him to shut the freak up. They ended up going to our manager about him. Later, I found he got pulled into the office and told not to comment on people's personal items as it's none of his business. He has been quiet since and avoids me like the plague. Obviously, the secret power here is crying on cue. There's been times in my life where I'm like, I think I could cry on cue if I really wanted to. Thing is, anytime I've like mildly tried just out of pure curiosity, I think I might be able to, but it would take a lot of intense trying to drum up emotion. Granted, OP had plenty of fuel in that moment. Older Nurse 1964 left a comment on the post saying, "Sorry about your mom, but that was genius." OP responded, "It's okay. She was the most sarcastic person I know. I'm kind of mad at myself that I didn't say more to scar him." A user named Joel left a reply to that saying, "Nothing you can add to what you said will be better than what others will tell him, and if he has a sliver of empathy, better than what he tells himself." The OP replied to that saying, "A few of our coworkers have told him he was rude and keep crap to himself. I know someone has filled him in about my mom because he was talking loudly about dementia like he knew all about it, but I just ignored him." Our next story is that a hickey? I was not, by any stretch of the imagination, popular in high school, but I did swim on our varsity team. Bullied is a strong word to use, but let's just say I was mean-girled a lot. Popular people on our team would say horrible things to me, try to embarrass me, would make it clear none of them liked me, used ugly photos of me in school collages, etc. One day, I was walking on the deck to get in the pool for practice. I was one of the last in the pool, but one of the boys in the mean girl group watched me walk in from the deck, and for the first time he noticed a scar above my right breast that he thought was a hickey. The boy loudly said, "Hey OP, what did you get up to last night? Is that a hickey on your chest?" People start to chuckle, and he smiles really big, very proud of himself. Me responding completely deadpan, "Actually, that's the scar from my Metaport from when I had cancer." His face completely fell. He was mortified. You could have heard a pin drop in that pool. Everyone's mouths were open except for two of my friends that were beaming ear to ear. I just walked past them and jumped in my lane. No one talked again until the coach came out to start practice. It's been decades since I was in high school, but thinking about this moment brings me joy. And yes, I actually had childhood cancer, and that was a scar from that treatment. Fun fact, me and that boy actually became friends after that. He helped me get my first summer job. He picked me up and took me to a movie with his friends, the first and only time I got stood up for a date. And as far as I can tell, he's a really great dad and husband now. We've lost touch over the years, but I always think about him when I need to remember people can change. You know, I think stories like this are why, when in theory it's not best practice to say something intentionally that might traumatize somebody or hurt them or I guess kind of stick in their psyche, for some people who actually do have a sense of humanity, it might actually help towards making them a better person. It makes me kind of think of, for example, people who have really negative experiences with a doctor or a dentist. I know somebody who confided in me that the last time they went to the dentist, as soon as the assistant walked in after getting their x-rays, the first thing out of their mouth was, "Looks like somebody hasn't been flossing." And just a comment like that sets the vibe and this kind of underlying feeling that they're kind of judging you, they're kind of looking down on you, that played some part in my friend having like an anxiety about going to the dentist again. So I think if something similar were to happen again, it would be more than appropriate to say, "You know, the last time I heard a comment like that, it played a part in me not going to the dentist for X amount of years." Because maybe that would actually get through to a person, make them hopefully think a little bit more about what they're just gonna blab. Amy Sue left a comment on the post saying, "Had a coworker look at a customer's ID and notice they lost a lot of weight. They were like, 'Oh my god, wow, congrats, how did you do it?' And the lady, deadpan, replied, 'Cancer.' OP responded, "In the cancer community, when we see someone we haven't seen in a while who has lost a lot of weight, we automatically think cancer first, which can also lead to some funny situations when someone wants to show off the hard work from their weight loss." Our next story is, when talking in another language, you should make sure the people you're talking about don't understand you. English isn't my first language, so please be kind. My city has 2 official languages. I don't want to say which ones they are, so let's say they're Italian and Swedish. Everyone can talk in Italian, and there are many people who may not speak Swedish fluently, but they can still understand it and talk it with a bit of difficulty, which is what happened to my boss. My city has different news offices. Some of them only give the news in Italian, other ones give them only in Swedish, and then there are the ones who use both languages. My boss works in one in which the news he makes for the TV are only in Italian. One time, my boss went to a conference pretty early. He came across one of the workers who worked in one of the news offices that gave the news in Swedish, and they both talked for a little while. Suddenly, a woman rushed in, coming late to the conference and panting a bit. She was a coworker of the man my boss was talking with. She said, "Did the president come out already?" The man replied, "I don't know. I was just talking with him," my boss, to see what was up. She said, "Don't even ask him. He doesn't know how to talk in Swedish." My boss gave her a deadpan look, understanding perfectly what she had said, and answered her back in Swedish, "No, the president hasn't come back yet. Also, I may not know a lot of Swedish, but I know enough to get by." The woman spluttered, embarrassed. She didn't even apologize. I want to believe that she stopped being so prejudiced, but who knows? If you live in a country like Canada or something, is it not kind of a moronic thing to go around talking French, assuming that nobody that works in the immediate French-speaking zone are going to understand a single thing you say? I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I could be at a Texas rodeo and I still don't know if I would feel fully comfortable saying something rude about another person out loud in Serbian. Profanity Manatee left a comment saying, "This happens a lot in my province, Ontario, which has a fairly large French-speaking population. It's like people forget and think they're the only ones who can speak French." I remember working customer service and I was helping a lady and her daughter. We were communicating in English. The mom said, "Oh, this girl's hair is very nice," referring to me in French to her daughter. And I said, "Thank you, I just dyed it," in French. She looked really surprised. At least she was giving me a compliment. That's not always the case. Our next story is, "Work Boomer Didn't Expect That Crap." I'm 33-year-old male, an occupational therapist. I work with a bunch of other allied health professionals. Working in allied health, you learn to have awkward conversations regularly and openly. I'm also fairly open about myself in terms of neurodiversity and my own medical history. The only member of the team I don't vibe with particularly well is the Karen of an admin. Female. I'm civil and just try not to get too wound up when she says stuff I disagree with. She likes saying that millennials are lazy and bad with money and have it easy. She doesn't keep it work appropriate. Recently, I accidentally knocked my wallet off my desk and the contents spilled out, including a individually foil-wrapped toilet wipe. I picked everything up. The admin said, "Oh, looks like someone's hoping to get lucky." I respond to her, "Huh? Oh, no, it's not a condom." She replies, "Sure, I know you say you're single, so it's better to be safe." I tell the admin, "It's not a condom, can you leave it be?" She replies, "Well, if it's not, then what is it?" I tell her, "I get severe IBS, and it can be very hard to clean up with just toilet paper, so I carry a wet wipe so I don't reek of crap in public." She replies, "Oh, you didn't need to get all personal." My manager pulled me aside, saying that that's just how admin is, but admitted she did push the issue. Apparently, my intimate life is okay to be discussed, but not my gastrointestinal health. She tends to stick to the facts when talking to me. Edit, clarifying that her age is not my grievance, but I can't change the title. You know, I think the real problem here is that she just couldn't keep her comments to herself regardless, even if it was a condom. I remember back in middle school, I think it was 8th grade, there was a really awkward moment in the middle of class where one of the girls in the class accidentally knocked over their purse and a pad fell out. I mean, the way everybody went quiet, the way there was like slight uncomfortable laughs, you might as well have thought like a deadly weapon fell out of her purse. Like I could hear some of the other guys on the other side of the class making little like quiet comments to themselves and like cracking up. Practical Cook left a comment saying, "This is why HR exists." OP replied, "You're right, but I don't like our HR department." Practical Cook replied and said, "Does anyone?" OP responded to that and said, "I assume HR departments?" Our next story is, I learned German in Auschwitz. So, Primo Levi was an Italian intellectual who was imprisoned in Auschwitz during World War II. He was a Jew. He survived, managed to get back home, that was a nostos, a veritable odyssey in and of itself, and after the war, he worked as a chemist. He also wrote about his experience in many books. If This Is a Man is his most famous one. In an interview, he explained that since he did speak German, he was sent often in Germany for work. Paraphrasing here, I don't remember the exact wording. I speak a very weird German though. It's the German of the military barracks, the German of soldiers. So when Germans asked me about it, I always said, well, I learned German in Auschwitz. And suddenly everyone was very keen to change the topic. That is not a zinger, sir. That's a sniper's headshot. So, could you imagine being in the opposite chair? You know, that's kind of an interesting accent. Where'd you pick that up from? I think if I got the answer that Primo Levi gave, I would probably just wrap up the interview and thank them for their time. Barking Mad left a comment saying, "My mother owned a store and a friend of hers always came by for a coffee and a chat. He was a stylish Jewish man. He saw himself as a player. We lived in a town with a lot of German visitors. One day, 2 German ladies came into the store and while shopping started to chat with our Jewish friend. They were complaining about the shower in their holiday home, and the friend says in German, 'Oh yes, I hate unfamiliar showers,' with a big smile. My mom and me exchanged a look of, 'Oh no!' The ladies say, 'Oh my god, you speak German so good. Where did you learn that?' He replies, 'Im KZ-Lager,' in English, 'in the concentration camp,' and shows his arm tattoo. The ladies smile politely and practically run out of the store. He was laughing. Our next story is a quick story about how I embarrassed my ex-monster-in-law. My ex-husband and I get along well enough to be able to live under the same roof together. We also live in a small 2-bedroom house. We've been separated for a while now with no intentions of getting back together. Recently, his mother decided to turn up unannounced. She ended up getting the couch as I refused to sleep in the same room as my ex, and I refused to give up my room and neither did my ex. She was not happy about that. She's been told multiple times that we don't have the room for an extra person in the house. In the over 2 decades my ex and I were together, his mother and I tolerated each other at best. Nothing hostile, I just didn't like the way she treated my then husband and swept it under the rug when she was spoken to about it. She basically ignores him until she wants something and then expects him to jump when she gives him attention. She's disappeared twice in his life. Once for about 5 years, the other time for over 10 years. So when she was visiting, I was checking out an adult toy website. I wasn't hiding my phone when she walked past. When she looked down, she yelled, "What on earth are you looking at, OP?" Without thinking, I retorted, "It's an adult toy store. Want to check out some toys?" The way this 60-plus-year-old woman jumped back when I went to give my phone to her was beautiful. She ignored me the rest of her stay. I'm a woman, by the way, for context. "Oh, come on, you're still practically my mom. Let's do a little browsing bonding in the bondage section. There's just so many titillating options on this website." "Wait, where are you going?" Snoowords left a comment saying, "That's great. Save a box from the company and offer to wrap X's gift for his mom." Our next story is, brother wouldn't get off car, so I drove it. I'm a 35-year-old male, and this story takes place in high school. I am the oldest of my siblings growing up. I was the relied upon child. I did my best to do what I was told and never got away with anything, even things that weren't my fault. I had few friends, but really enjoyed the times I could have away from the house, as I didn't really care for my alcoholic dad's mood swings or my mom's overbearing insanity. My brother was the complete opposite. A year younger, had tons of friends, girlfriends, drank, did drugs, and would outlast my parents' feeble attempts at accountability. When I finally got my own car, mainly used to drive myself and siblings to school, I looked forward to leaving to go game with my friends or do school drama club. This was before a lot of online features became common. When I would try to leave the house, he would jump on the hood of my car to keep me from leaving. He knew that he could always get away with doing whatever he wanted to me, but God forbid I ever do anything to him. I would have to get out of the car and chase him off. Then, before I could pull out of the driveway, he would hop back on. Rinse repeat until I had to get mom involved, who never did anything to make him stop doing this in the future. So this went on for weeks, maybe months, till one day, something in me snapped. There he was again, grinning ear to ear at me through the windshield. Why couldn't he just leave me alone? He had anything he wanted but couldn't let me have time to myself without making it as aggravating as possible. So I chased him off again, and when I got back into the driver's seat, Like clockwork, he was back on the hood, laughing his butt off at me. So I put the car in reverse and rolled out of the driveway onto the cul-de-sac we lived on. His smile faded, but not completely. Not yet, still believing I didn't have the guts. Then I put it in drive. I wasn't halfway to the stop sign at the end of the street before he shouted to be let off. It was my turn to smile as I hit the gas just a little. His smile was gone now and replaced with growing terror. He began screaming that he was sorry and he wouldn't do it again, his fingers growing red from the death grip he must have had on my hood. I just laughed. Couldn't help it. His face turning red, tears streaming down, was the funniest thing I'd seen in all of my life at that point. I made a turn to where the connecting cul-de-sac met with the main road. One more turn and I would be able to get it up to 60. He was blowing his voice out, screaming and begging me not to do it. I figured he got the message and let him off. He stumbled all the way home. When I got back, my mom had convinced herself that it was a silly joke instead of dealing with the fact that I could have seriously hurt him or that she allowed the situation to get that bad. So I was off the hook. He never did it again. The way I see it, should OP have done it? No, obviously I would never condone doing anything remotely like this, but OP did serve as the probably sole catalyst in that guy's life of teaching them exactly how your actions have consequences. Now, with how seemingly coddled his entire life has been, I don't know if it's really going to truly sink in, but at least they'll stop hopping on your car. Really puts a big old spin on the whole giving your little sibling a car ride thing. Casey Saber left a comment saying, "Good, scare the idiot half to death and he'll clean up his act a bit." OP replied, "A bit is an overstatement." He continued his antics with everyone around him after I left. A few rehabs and jail time later, he's still going through jobs like P. Diddy goes through baby oil. I went into community corrections and supervise offenders. Shipmox left a comment saying, "Nice, how's your relationship with your brother now?" OP replied, "To summarize, non-existent. I decided I didn't want a toxic person in my life. My grandmother confirmed I made the right decision last Thanksgiving when he told me my brother had been taking money from our mother while she was in hospice care, dying of bowel cancer, to fuel his gambling and Adderall habit. Honestly, it sounds like OP's little brother could have used a little bit more traumatizing. And if you want a little bit more traumatizing, you can check out my latest traumatizing revenge story video on the left. Or if you want a free ride on the hood all the way to my latest video, you can check out that video on the right. But with that being said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.